Your Highness, thank you for giving us this interview. I'd like to start out with the question of the two-state solution. There are many people who say that it's dead, that there are too many Israeli settlements, and that the Palestinian leadership is not interested in having peace. What do you think? Is there still hope to achieve a two-state solution?
I think the two-state solution is difficult to achieve, but it is achievable. And I think that would be a better solution, definitely, for everybody than the one-state solution. The one-state solution proposes that the territory that is Palestine historically be one with two peoples living in it, one enjoying full privileges, the other not so much privileged. And that's a recipe for continuous disaster and conflict. Two-state solution is better because it will relieve that condition and make it a more equitable settlement for both sides. So my hope is that although the difficulties are great, that we will be able to achieve the two-state solution.
Many Israelis say Israel has withdrawn from Gaza and it got Hamas. It withdrew from Lebanon and it got Hezbollah. And they signed the Oslo Accords and it didn't make peace, and that they've given up on peace. What do you say to these people?
Well, unfortunately, that is one side of the story. And if you look at the withdrawal from Lebanon, for example, if it wasn't for the long, 10-year occupation of southern Lebanon by Israel, there would not be Hezbollah. On Gaza, for example, Sharon, without consultation, without any consideration for what the Palestinians want, what the Gazawis want, he simply said, I'm leaving. And that's it. And then he imposes a quarantine on the whole territory of Gaza, again making the grounds for the fermentation and the sense of resistance towards Israel. So there are two sides to that coin. And I think if we're going to go on between Israel and the Arabs to lay blame for what happened in the past, we can go back forever and find excuses. It's better to go forward. And I think this is what the Arab Peace Initiative proposes.
There are other Israelis who say that the Middle East is in such a terrible situation, their countries falling apart, Syria, Islamic State. This is no time to rock the boat and no time to embark on new experiments in creating a Palestinian state.
Well, I beg to differ with that view. I think Israel being in a state where it is now, enjoying relative peace, is not sustainable. Sure, there are problems in Lebanon, problems in Syria, problems with Gaza and Palestine and so on, as you said, in Yemen and so on. What better time than for Israel to say, okay, let us have peace with our neighbors and come from, if you like, a position of strength to the table and say, okay, let's see what you guys have. Mr. Abbas and his PLO have been negotiating with Israel since 1993. They have not abandoned that principle of negotiation, and they accepted certain parameters for that. Oslo itself was a parameter for a two-state solution that would bring about, from their point of view, a recognition of their rights and a state, etc. Hamas has publicly said always that it will accept what the PLO achieves with Israel.
So who has to take the initiative now?
Well, I think
who do you
Israel
expect could take the initiative? Maybe Saudi Arabia?
Well, Saudi Arabia did take the initiative. It was the one that proposed the whole deal in the first place. And I think if Mr. Netanyahu were more of a far-sighted leader than he seems to be, he would go ahead and say, okay, I am willing to negotiate on the basis of the Arab Peace Initiative. Let us sit down and do that. I think that is the initiative that will break the logjam. Because it's obvious that the US government is not going to push Israel to do that. And there's nobody else who can other than the US. So it has to come from Israel. And if Netanyahu had the willingness to do that, I think that would really go a long way to remove the suspicions and the doubts that exist in the Arab side.
So if I listen to what you're saying, we're all depending now on Mr. Netanyahu.
He is the Prime Minister of Israel. If the Israeli people were to choose someone else who would be more willing to engage, that would be a welcome development. I must say, in public opinion view in the Arab world, there's been a letdown in that. King Salman visited with President Obama at the beginning of September. Mm-hmm. And if you read the communique there is a very strong reference to re-establishing the negotiations on the Palestinian issue. I hope that can be moved forward. But as I said, I don't think that anybody expects the U.S. to push Israel to agree to the Arab Peace Initiative and to reach a two-state solution. So it has to come from Israel. And I hope that your viewers, when they see me talking like this, I'm not pandering to them. I'm simply stating a fact, that it is the Israeli people in the final analysis who have to decide for themselves.
There are many people who say that part of the reason for extremism and radicalism in the Middle East is the sort of radical ideology that has been coming forth from places in Saudi Arabia, and that the government has not done enough to stem these sources of radical ideology. I mean, the things that Daesh have been doing have been unprecedented. People have seen things that they've never seen before. And it makes people wonder, is there something a strain of Islam that is very dangerous for humanity, more than other religions?
And this comes out basically, I think, of not only a misconception, but I would say ignorance of Islam. To consider that chopping somebody's head off in the way that Fahish does is in any way Islamic is to go against the whole grain of Islamic tradition and Islamic thought and theology and practice. And I would also mention to you that there are groups, non-Muslim groups, who are equally vicious. Look at the ones operating out in Congo or in some of the Central African states, and how they've treated other peoples than their own faith and so on. Some of the happenings in India, where a whole train was set on fire because it was full of Muslims, etc. So viciousness is not unique to people who claim to be Muslims. From the Islamic point of view, these are people that we call Khawarij. They're apostates. They're people who have gone outside the Islamic faith completely. And their promotion of themselves as Muslims is actually not only a deception, but it's a robbery. They are robbing me and 1.5 billion Muslims from their faith. And that is the issue, I think, that where the misconception and the ignorance comes from. And it blankets the rest of us with the deeds and actions of these apostates.
I have a personal question. You've met with many Israelis over the years. You're, as far as I know, the only senior Saudi who's been doing so. And can you tell me, one, why are you meeting with Israelis? And two, what kind of pushback have you gotten or criticism have you gotten for making these meetings and making them public indeed?
I think I'm doing the right thing. And my conscience is clear. And hoping that one day I'll be able to go, as I mentioned in my article to you, and visit the tombs of the prophets and the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Church of the Sepulchre in Jerusalem, is something that I would very much like to do in my lifetime. If they accept the Arab Peace Initiative and enter into meaningful negotiations, it's not just me. Others will go to these holy places and visit them.
Thank you very much for giving us this interview.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you soon again.